Beauty tips, life hacks, and anti-Semitism? Is TikTok pumping out pro-Palestinian influence to young people? Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is the latest high-profile figure to argue it's algorithms and not Tel Aviv's actions that are fueling anti-Israel anger. Is she right? You're watching Counterpoints with me, Melinda Nusafora. On the ground, the Israel-Hamas war remains, to an extent, in a fragile pause. Online, though, the war of influence still rages. In the US, conservative politicians, activists and commentators are again arguing social media has a pro-Palestinian bias. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton told an Israeli media forum that young people are being misled online.
We're getting their information from social media, particularly TikTok. That is where they were learning about what happened on October 7th, what happened in the days, weeks, and months to follow. That's a serious problem. It's a serious problem for democracy, whether it's Israel or the United States, and it's a serious problem for our young people.
This is the first war where social media, particularly TikTok, has played such a dominant role as a news source. In the US, almost half of the young people aged between 18 and 29 get their news from TikTok, compared to only 9% in 2020. In the UK, 75% of 16 to 24-year-olds go to social media for news, again, primarily to TikTok.
So you have TikTok just smashing our young people's brains all day long with video of carnage in Gaza. And this is why so many of us can't have a sane conversation with younger Jews, because anything that we try to say to them, they are hearing it through this wall of carnage. So I want to give data and information and facts and arguments, and they are just seeing in their minds carnage, and I sound obscene.
So is it access to videos of carnage that's influencing young people, or is it the carnage itself? On this episode, we'll debate if social media is influencing young people to hate Israel. Is TikTok a dangerous place to consume news? And why are people losing trust in traditional news outlets? Joining us for this discussion is Hen Mazzig, Senior Fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute and author of The Wrong Kind of Jew. And Amani Al-Khatahtbeh is back with us, author, activist and founder of MuslimGirl.com. To both of you, welcome to Counterpoints and thanks for being here. Immediately after the October 7 attacks, you had some groups, such as Human Rights Watch, for example, arguing that pro-Palestinian voices on social media were being silenced. Now, you have public figures, Hillary Clinton being one of them most recently, arguing the opposite, that anti-Israel sentiment is being amplified on the technology. There's no denying that social media is now a major player when it comes to news content, but is it unfairly skewing the narrative? Hen, let me ask you to kick off tonight's debate. Is social media influencing young people to hate Israel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the conflict in the Middle East is the trigger, but the hate speech is the fuel to it. And what we've seen on social media is this extreme content that is often fueled with lies and misinformation that is getting the most clicks and the most engagement. And we have this invisible editors of our feed, which are the social media giants that reward this sort of hate speech. I can see it from my own platform, the debates that are heated and where people are screaming at each other. These are the type of content. This is the type of content that is rewarded. And a lot of it is fueled with anti-Semitism. anti-Semitism, that's filled with anti-Semitism. We're seeing it from our research. The most hated group on social media today in the conversation is the Jewish community. And this sort of hate speech and rhetoric has led to horrible consequences for Jews, from our synagogues being attacked, from Tunisia to New York to London to LA. Jewish people live in fear because of the hate speech that we've seen online. Of course, it's fueled, it's connected to the conflict, but the conflict is just the trigger, in my view.
Amani, what do you think? Is it social media that is influencing people, undue influence against Israel and against the Israeli population?
Young people hate Israel because of Israel's illegal actions and war crimes that it has been committing with complete impunity, especially over the past 2 years, but which has been going on for decades, and that this conflict, as Hen said, was the trigger point for greater awareness and visibility. We can't have this conversation without first establishing the premise that for decades, anti-Semitism has been conflated with anti-Zionism as a silencing tactic to try to eliminate any type of valid and protected political criticism of the Israeli government's actions. And in doing so, it serves the interests of the Israeli government, right? It makes it sound like anytime we want to criticize very valid war crimes and this ongoing genocide that it's committing using American taxpayer dollars, that we can't say it because this is somehow anti-Semitic. And honestly, I think the biggest contribution to anti-Semitism is this conflation that Israel's actions are validated by the Judaic religion, when countless Jewish people around the world are at the forefront of criticizing the Israeli government and are actually now suffering the systematic silencing and censorship that is taking place across social media in order to suppress any type of criticism of Israel. We don't need to look any farther than the changing policies of tech companies with the way that they moderate content online, the way that they have been sicking the algorithm in order to suppress this type of conversation from taking place. Social media is the new battlefield. And, the fact of the matter is that Israel has every leverage of power at its fingertips, especially on the social media domain, in order to silence its critics. And yet still, the sentiment remains that largely young people and people of all generations, honestly, online, have said that they do not support Israel and they want Israel's genocide to stop. And I'm sorry, but no amount of censorship is going to change that.
Hen, what do you think, particularly about that idea of anti-Semitism being conflated with opposition to the Israeli government?
I mean, I'm very critical of the Israeli government, but I believe that anti-Zionism is inherently connected to anti-Semitism. Just to give you some example of how lethal anti-Zionism is, an 82-year-old Karen Diamond was burned to death in Boulder, Colorado for marching in support of the release of the hostages. The attacker said that he did it because of the war in Gaza. 30-year-old Liron Lishensky and 26-year-old Sarah Milgren were shot to death by an activist that shouted "Free Palestine" as he shot those two young Jews. A 28-year-old dentist, Benjamin Haroni, was shot and killed in San Diego for being Jewish because of Palestine. The attacker was citing that. 69-year-old Paul Kessner was beaten to death in Los Angeles for holding an Israeli flag. 39-year-old Orthodox Jewish man was shot in Chicago, and the shooter was chanting "Free Palestine." Two prayers in Manchester in the United Kingdom were killed just a few months ago by an attacker that voiced his anti-Zionist control. So anti-Zionist opinion. So to pretend as if anti-Zionism has completely nothing to do with anti-Semitism is beyond disingenuous, in my view. I mean, Jews are being killed around the world in the name of anti-Zionism. Majority of Jews around the world are Zionists, according to Gallup and Pew Research from the last year. The vast majority of Jews are pro-Israel and are Zionist. Yes, there is a fringe minority, but they are the tokens. Like every community has tokens that are being pushed forward. But the to be clear, the vast majority of Jews are Zionists. Half of the world Jewish population lives in Israel. So this connection is not something that we can ignore. And yes, of course, I know this war is horrible, but I think many of us are wondering, why is this war causing so much hatred and violence against Jews when far worse conflicts around the world have not triggered anything like that? I mean, even after October 7th, we haven't seen on the days after October 7th any support or any outrage on the opposite side. So it's I think it's just a bit disingenuous, and it really makes me think of how we're not able to identify the disease, and that's why it continues. As long as we're going to pretend that it's about a conflict or about a war, it's not about that. Anti-Semitism existed far before the war, and it will continue to exist, and it's deadly for us.
Amani, do you want to respond? Do you want to jump in there? Is it disingenuous? I mean, Hen makes a pretty strong point, though those actions that he sort of outlined there have all been linked. And is it because this hatred is being propagated online, that hate speech now has a platform?
Here's the thing. Hate crimes in all their forms deserve to be denounced. And that goes for anti-Semitic hate crimes, Islamophobic hate crimes, any type of bigotry and hate that is targeting any community from whatever religious background they come from. However, that's not what we're talking about here, okay? The biggest service to anti-Semitic sentiment, which yes, exists online for sure, the biggest service that has been amplifying it has been the fact that Hen has an apartheid genocidal government that is committing unspeakable atrocities in the name of Judaism. And because of that conflation, it's giving the general public the idea that the Jewish faith is now connected to us witnessing children being mutilated, to a government creating the largest child amputee population in history, to people being buried alive by the tens of thousands in an indiscriminate bombing. And the problem is that Zionist Jewish people like Hen are telling people that, yes, this is the equation of my religion. We support this. And if you don't support us and our actions, then you stand against our religion and you are an anti-Semite. So this conflation can only be directly addressed by getting at the root of the evil, which Hen said, which is to disavow the Zionist racist ideology from the Jewish religion, from the Jewish faith. And this shouldn't be something, astronomical. I don't understand why it's being spoken about like it's so crazy, For example, anytime any type of terrorist action is committed in the name of Islam by a fringe individual, right? And it's being blamed on our religion. You have millions of Muslims around the world be the first, before even asked, be the first to stand up and say, we denounce this. This does not represent our religion. We do not agree with this. We disavow this. But yet we have pro-Israel Jewish people like Hen who actually do not represent the majority of Jewish people. I have plenty of incredible allies, friends, people that I consider.
But that's false. You can't say that. According to the polling, according to Gallup and Pew Research, majority, over 90% of Jews are Zionists.
Why is it so difficult for you to come out and denounce the actions of the Israeli government?
Okay, all right.
I have denounced the actions of the Israeli government.
No, you don't.
I have denounced the actions of the Israeli government, but I'm not going to sit here and let you tell me that I know my community. I know what anti-Semitism is.
Okay, Amani, let Hen respond to your comments there. Let Hen respond to your comments, Amani.
Accountable for creating consent for genocide.
Okay, Hen, respond to what Amani's saying there.
Yeah, it's so bizarre that you're telling me what is and isn't anti-Semitism. Imagine me explaining to you what Islamophobia is. I would never do it. I just condemn Islamophobia, and I have condemned it in the past. I have criticized the Israeli government, much like most Jews. And the truth is, and it's, you can't twist it around. There's numbers. The Gallup found that over 90% of Jews in America are Zionists and pro-Israel. Half of the world Jewish population, 7 million Jews, live in Israel. To say that millions of Jews around the world oppose Israel is completely bizarre. And I mean, I'm just reading today that at least 60,000 people
let Hen finish that point, Amani, and then I'll come back to you.
According to The Guardian today, RSF massacre left the Sudanese city with over 60,000 civilians massacred within 2 weeks, and over 150,000 Sudanese have been missing since the war has started. How many Sudanese people have been paying with their life the same way that Jews have because of the war in Israel? They haven't. There weren't any attacks on Sudanese people, right? But there is attacks on Jews on our synagogues, and you can't even condemn it without excusing it and saying that it's Israel. You should condemn anti-Semitism, period. I condemn Islamophobia, period. I think both of those hatred are the flip coin. And instead of us saying this is not okay without excusing that, oh, well, we need to understand why Jews have been shot outside of the Holocaust Museum in DC because of a war in Gaza. Really? How can you make this argument? It's so insane to me.
Amani?
See, this, I think, is what's become very boring for a lot of people, and why so much of the public has stopped taking the real issue of anti-Semitism seriously, is because of talking points like this. Because the only defense that people like Hen have are, well, genocide's being committed by other countries. Why can't we commit genocide too? We have a right to kill people just like other
No, it's not what I said.
like us. And then when he's talking to a non-Muslim or a non-Arab, then his defense becomes, why do you care that we're killing Arabs and Muslims? You're not even one of them. Why should you care? Because people have human decency. And you literally exposed yourself of the issue. If you're telling me that half of the Jewish population lives in Israel, and that the majority of this Gallup poll said that most Jews support Zionism, Israel has a real indoctrination problem where it's creating a society that the majority of that society supports genocide, where the majority of that society supports the systemic rape of Palestinian hostages and has gone to the streets to protest their rights.
What are you talking about? When did a hostage was raped? When did Palestinian prisoners been raped?
This is a real
This is so insane to make this, you're throwing accusations and lies, and there's no factual basis to any of your statements. And that's the problem with this sort of rhetoric.
Okay.
That's the rhetoric.
Just a moment, Amani. We're gonna.
And you can't reasonably push back against this.
Okay. That's an accusation that is unfounded, we need to say, in the sense of legal balance here.
No.
But Hen, I want to put a question to you.
Video evidence, and it has been actually confirmed by a number of global organizations verifying that the Israeli army has a systematic policy of rape against
the Israeli Defense Force has denied those claims, and in the sense of balance, I just need to say that for the sense of balance. But Amani, just a moment, I need to put a question to Hen, and then I'm going to come back to you. Hen, a lot of mainstream media in the West in the past has been accused of having a pro-Israel bias. And now we're hearing social media is amplifying pro-Palestinian voices. We've had Hillary Clinton saying that it has a pro-Palestinian bias. Is having a pro-Israeli bias in a lot of Western media equally as dangerous, equally as damaging for people's ability to get a nuanced sense of the news?
I mean, in my opinion, the vast majority of media that I'm following in the West is really pro-Palestine. I mean, I'm thinking about the New York Times, CNN, BBC. BBC was found to be over 1,800 times pro-Palestine and actually skewing the facts. Over 1,800 times they found in the last 2 years that the BBC has lied about Israel to be more sympathetic. In fact, they actually paid Hamas to create a documentary. The son of Hamas in Gaza created a documentary from the BBC. The head of the BBC had to resign when this information came out. So, I mean, factually speaking, again, not what I feel, but factually speaking, the media is much more leaning towards the Palestinian side of this conflict than the Israeli side. And that's, again, we can argue what we feel, but the fact speaks for themselves.
Okay, and I do need to point out that the BBC didn't directly pay Hamas. They paid the son of a Hamas member, but maybe that's semantics, but just to articulate that point. Amani, do you agree that there is perhaps an unfair pro-Palestinian bias coming across in a lot of mainstream media?
It's so crazy to me and a lot of people that even with all of the power that pro-Israel forces have within the American media. People like Hen still play the victim card by saying that there's a bias in the other direction and that there's a pro-Palestine bias. So even with the
you've been victimizing yourself since we started.
Of coverage that the vast, innumerable war crimes committed against Palestinians, when they're just a fraction even acknowledged within mainstream media, suddenly this is even that is too much. Even the mention of
it's literally on the cover of the New York Times
for Hen and his ilk. Here's the bottom line.
But do you think it's unfair, though, Amani? Shouldn't the media just be reporting the facts, though? If the media is unfairly promoting a pro-Palestinian bias, doesn't that go against what we expect from our traditional media?
Our media, especially in the United States of America, is Zionist. And I think that that is very blatantly bragged about by every Israeli organization imaginable, including the Israeli government itself. Here's the bottom line.
What?
And I want to say this clearly. I want to say this clearly and without interruption. Israel's war stopped being on Hamas a long time ago. Israel's war is on the American First Amendment. Israel's biggest threat to its existence is free speech and people being exposed to the factual evidence of the war crimes that Israel is committing in real time. And that is why every time information is being freely shared about Israel's war crimes, the first immediate action that pro-Israel forces do in America is try to take ownership of that media. We see that happen with CBS. Just a week ago, Ben Shapiro was at a conference where he was openly bragging and thanking the capture of CBS by a pro-Zionist owner. Right now, as we speak, TikTok is in an ongoing deal to be owned by some of the most Zionist pro-Israel voices that the country has. And even your own leader, Netanyahu, was talking to a room of influencers calling TikTok the new weapon of war, and that he is so excited and can't wait for TikTok to transfer ownership to American owners so that they can censor people even more. The only chance that Israel has in this PR war is to try to completely curtail and annihilate the American First Amendment and American free speech. We are even gutting free speech on college campuses and destroying the American education system in order to silence criticism of Israel. There's an absolute rupture and there's our destruction of American society, all at the expense of protecting Israel's genocide.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is all factual and confirmed, and it's out in the open, and your own leaders brag about this. So not only is Israel reliant on American taxpayer dollars, it is completely arrogant about it. It bites the hand that feeds it, and it wants to oppress not only Palestinians, but the American people themselves.
Okay, Hen, I'm going to give you a right of reply on that, but because Amani brought it up, I just want to play for our audience as well a bit of that clip. It's from, I think, September 27, when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking to a group of influencers when he was visiting the United States. Let's take a listen to this short clip.
But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is followers. TikTok, number one.
Hen, respond to what Amani has been saying, but also this idea that obviously Prime Minister Netanyahu is aware they're playing this influence game on social media too. Is it just that Israel aren't playing it as well? Are they not using this weapon that Netanyahu calls it as well as the other side of this conflict?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to be in the position to defend Netanyahu because I don't agree with much of his policy, and I have been very critical of his government. However, I think that in this clip, specific clip, he's speaking about the forefront of the war on with anti-Semitism on social media that has been proven. Again, it's not, I mean, there were a lot of claims that Amani has made throughout her statement, and I think 80 or 90% of what she said can be easily debunked because it's not true. But the facts are that the vast majority of the media in the US has been covering anti-Israel sentiments. And if we're talking about college campuses, have you seen the encampments on college campuses throughout America? Well, how are they being silenced? I mean, I'm hearing anti-Israel rhetoric and pro-Hamas rhetoric on college campuses in the streets. It goes up to the Congress with Rashida Tlaib that have made no apologies for her really strong anti-Israel sentiments. We hearing it everywhere all the time. I mean, even the right wing in America, the far right, people like Tucker Carlson have become anti-Israel. Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, neo-Nazis in America are very pro-Palestine these days. And all of it is because of anti-Semitism. That's the one thing that everyone has in common. And instead of condemning it and understanding that, yes, it will start with anti-Semitism, but it will also go to Islamophobia, and it will also go to other forms of racism and hatred towards the minority groups. But this notion that somehow Israel is winning the PR war is ridiculous. I mean, in the cover of the New York Times throughout this war, we had pictures upon pictures, issues that have been debunked, stories that have been debunked, even coming from Hamas on the New York Times, in CNN, on BBC. Again, there's a study of BBC. You can find it online. Look up the study. How many times BBC have been lying about this conflict. So for me, I mean, the truth is clear, and it doesn't matter what I feel. Again, it's empirically proven that the media is more anti-Israel. College campuses have become anti-Israel. The media and the social media is really leaning towards anti-Israel. And again, the most important proof is that Jewish people, dozens of us in the last 2 years, have paid with it with our lives, and we are afraid of going to our synagogues. And instead of condemning it, we're finding an excuse that it's because of Netanyahu or it's because of the war. It's not because of the war. Anti-Semitism existed far before that. By the way, 6 million Jews have been killed by the same sort of hatred.
Okay, Amani, I'm going to bring you in a moment, but you raised something there, Hen. So I want to ask you this before I hand it over to Amani, because you were talking about these college campuses. Young people have always been the drivers of anti-war protests, long before social media and this influence PR campaign began. University campuses were the background for anti-Vietnam protests. Young people rallied against the Iraq War, the war on terror. So why is this current evolution of student protests on campuses all of a sudden so much more worrying than what we have seen as traditional student-driven protests well before social media began?
I think that a lot of them have been anti-war, and I think you're right about that. And it's in the past, it used to be, we're anti-war and we're anti-violence. But there, in all of those encampments, Jewish students have been facing violence. They've been rejected from entering the encampments. They were asked if they're Zionists or not. They were attacked physically. Jewish students were attacked across America on college campuses in the last 2 years because of their identity. It was never anti-war that also included violence. It was never anti-war that justified violence against minorities. And in my point of view, I mean, the way I see it, if you're an anti-Zionist today and you want to convince us that anti-Zionism has nothing to do with anti-Semitism, you should be at the forefront of fighting anti-Semitism, on calling it out, and not saying that it's because of the Jewish lobby, which is an anti-Semitic trope, or it's because the Jews control the media, again, anti-Semitic trope. All of those anti-Semitic tropes are leading to real-world violence against us. And unless you're going to work twice as hard to fight anti-Semitism, don't tell me that anti-Zionism has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It completely has everything to do with it, and it's inherently connected. And again, Jews are being shot outside of our synagogues because of this anti-Zionist rhetoric. Factually, outside of the DC museum, the shooter that shot 2 Jewish people was shouting "Free Palestine." An 82-year-old Karen Diamond was burned to death in Boulder, Colorado this year because of an attacker that cited Palestine. I mean, that's the facts. You can nod your head, but these are the facts.
Amani, what do you say to that? That previously student protests were anti-war, they were pro-peace, but have these protests, this social media-driven student protests, gone too far?
First of all, I was there for the Columbia University encampment. I actually spent a significant amount of time on that campus when that encampment was happening. I was there as one of the only media observers the night that Hind's Hall was taken. I spent a lot of time directly with the organizers and the student activists and the protesters at this encampment. And it might be mind-boggling to your fake strawman arguments, Hen, that the majority of the leaders of that encampment, as were many encampments across the country, were Jewish students. And I interviewed many of them for
So it makes the anti-Semitism totally okay.
And no, that's to disprove that this is anti-Semitic. The only thing that
I mean, you can be part of a minority group and engage in bigotry and hatred. You know that.
This isn't an elementary school classroom. I'm not here to teach you the definitive difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. I said that within my first.
You're not going to teach me because you're not Jewish. I would be the one to decide that as a minority community. The same way that I'm not going to teach you what is and isn't Islamophobic. Don't preach to me about my community.
Okay, if we can return to the question at hand, Amani.
If I can return to that question, okay? Here's the thing that I'm going to affirm one thing that Hen said during his entire spiel, and that is that polls have revealed that for the first time in history, the majority of the American public is anti-Israel now. And guess what? That also includes American Jewish people. Many Jewish people are against Israel because they are basic human beings with human dignity, and they understand a war crime when they see one. They understand the dehumanization of a people when they see one. And you are the biggest tool of anti-Semitism for you to continue making that conflation between Israel's inexcusable actions with your Jewish faith. And frankly, you should be ashamed of yourself. And you owe an apology to your own Jewish brothers and sisters for this disgusting language and conflation that you're doing in their name and on their behalf. It's
what
really
conflation? I told you that Jews are being shot in our synagogues because of anti-Zionism. Is that
okay? But Amani,
will question: are Jews not being shot outside of our synagogue because of Palestine? Answer the question. You can't, because you know that we are. Anti-Zionism kills Jews, and you are excusing it and telling me that I should be ashamed of myself? How dare you?
Amani, that's a good point. I mean, Hen shouldn't be ashamed of himself.
It's actually a very
Were Jews not shot in the name of Palestine? Were Jews not shot in America in the name of Palestine? Yes or no?
Here, let me answer your question for you, okay? About Israel losing the PR war. Nobody has claimed that Israel is winning the PR war. Not a single sane person can ever say that Israel was trying to win it. It absolutely lost it.
You argued. You said that we control the media.
Stop interrupting me when I'm speaking.
So stop lying.
It must be absolutely humiliating that with all of the power and influence that Israel has in the United States of America, one of the strongest Israel lobbies.
So we control the media, but we're losing the PR war. We control America, but we're losing Americans. You understand how
you will not interrupt me when I'm speaking. Hen, you will not interrupt me when I'm speaking.
Yeah, well, that's the debate.
Okay, all right, Amani, we need to keep moving it on though, Amani, so if you can keep to the point and we'll answer each other respectfully before we move on.
Listen, I would appreciate it if you were the one to get Hen to shut up so I can finish my sentiment. Keeps interrupting
we
me.
need to maintain, I know that this is an impassioned debate, but please, we need to remain a level of respect and decorum to each other.
Respectfully, can I complete my sentiment?
Okay, very briefly, Amani, because you've had lots of time, so respond to that so we can give it to Hen and move on.
I haven't had any clear time. Here's what I want to say, is that it is one of the most humiliating defeats in Israel's history, that it has lost a PR war in which it has every possible power vehicle at its fingertips. It's the most influential foreign country in the United States of America. And even with all of that, with all of the funding, the resources, the power, it still lost the PR war, because the one thing Israel does not have on its side is the truth. And the more people hear about the truth, the more people turn against Israel. And the longer that Israel's actions keep getting conflated with the Jewish faith, the worse it's going to make the issue of anti-Semitism globally. And you should be ashamed of yourself for contributing to that.
Okay, and I will respectfully turn it over to Hen. Is Israel losing the PR war?
Yeah, Israel is losing the PR war, but I mean it's so bizarre to hear Amani saying that on the one hand Jews control the media, and then saying that because even though we control it, we're losing. That Jews control the Congress and America, but then we're losing also the Americans. Jews are all these terrible things that we can be at the same time. You know, the most powerful superpower, but also the termites on the bottom. And that's actually a neo-Nazi talking points that have been spread during the Holocaust, and that's what led to the murder and the genocide of Jews.
Your government is proliferating.
Amani, please just let Hen finish, and then we'll continue. Thanks, Hen.
No, I'm sorry. I can't.
No, Amani, you asked Hen not to interrupt you, so give him the same respect. Hen, continue your answer, please.
Then yeah, I will absolutely.
Thank you, Amani.
That is absolutely unacceptable and atrocious.
I didn't compare you to neo-Nazis.
Amani, please allow Hen to finish his answer. Thanks very much. We need everyone to have their fair say. Hen, continue, please.
Yeah, I mean, and to say that that Israel controls America or has the most funding, I mean, Qatar just gave it was over $1 trillion deal with America. They gave President Trump a plane. I mean, what are you even talking about? Israel has no influence in this regard. $1 trillion compared to $3 billion that Israel has to buy weapons from America. That's all Israel is getting from America. And I think the most glaring part for me in the statements that we hear from Amani is this inability to condemn the fact that Jews have been killed in the name of Palestine, that Jews have been killed outside of a Jewish museum in DC when the shooter said, free Palestine. The same thing that has been heard in the encampment in Columbia University got 2 young Jews killed. The same chants that we've heard got Jews in Boulder, Colorado killed, got Jews in Manchester killed. So to pretend that your movement is somehow pure and has nothing to do with anti-Semitism is embedded in this movement. And instead of educating yourself and listening to Jews, you spend most of your time telling us why it's actually our fault. It's actually our fault that we are being killed. If we were just less Jews, maybe we wouldn't be attacked this way. And that for me is really disturbing. And I think, you know, I was able to criticize the Israeli government. I was able to say that Islamophobia is horrible and it's real and it does kill, and there were cases of Islamophobia, and I'm not excusing for once this sort of hatred or trying to explain to Amani why Islamophobia actually has reason, because there is no reason to hating anyone. And if we want to move forward to a better future, we just have to agree on that humanity comes first. And as long as we can't do that, we will never get to anywhere better.
I'm going to move us on in our debate a little bit to refocus on this idea of social media and the news, whether it's dangerous, whether it's not dangerous. A journalist's role is traditionally to bear witness, to report the facts without bias. Those are the lofty ideals, and perhaps not all journalists or not all networks live up to them. But at the very least, professional journalists know they should have certain ethical and moral standards. A content creator, though, has no obligation to impartiality. They have no obligation to bear witness without bias. So, Amani, are TikTok and other social media platforms unreliable, maybe unsafe places for young people to be consuming news?
Like Netanyahu himself said, the freedom of speech that's on social media is the biggest threat to Israel. And therefore, social media networks are, to his experience, the new weapons of war. And his answer to that, when killing the most number of journalists within a conflict in human history, when it's not enough to kill the journalists telling those stories, now Netanyahu has set his sights on censoring and controlling the social media networks themselves. For example, Dropsite News released a really damning expose that found that hundreds of former IDF soldiers are top employees all across Meta. You have genocidal army veterans that are actually embedded within a tech company now and controlling the algorithms and what's being shared online to try to suppress this information. Actually, Israel is the only government in the world that has a government agency that is directly communicating with Meta, where they literally provide lists of accounts directly to Meta for them to shut down in order to censor criticism of Israel. This is all open. This is all factually confirmed. There are so many reports that have confirmed this. Israel is working hand in hand, not only to commit a genocide, but to get tech companies to do the dirty work for them now. It's very well documented across Meta. And unfortunately, now with this TikTok deal, they're trying to take the same influence and control and power that they have within Meta, an American-owned company, and compel that same type of influence within what the only popular social media network that we had that wasn't owned by America, was owned by China. To try to force it under American control because they know that it's safer for them and they're able to more easily influence and control the information that's being shared that way. So really what we're witnessing Israel do is not only silence, well, first of all, it's prevented any global journalists from entering Gaza in order to provide that unbiased direct coverage. But then even people within Gaza themselves that have been sharing and reporting on the actual events taking place have been killed, targeted directly and killed. And now the very platforms where they've spread that information, where they've shared those events, are now also being tainted and shut down and put under the control of the Israeli government. The direct pipeline between the Israeli government and these tech companies is well documented.
Okay. Hen, is the IDF controlling algorithms and is Israel embedding people in Meta? And then circling back to our primary question, are social media platforms such as TikTok dangerous places for people to be consuming news?
It's actually laughable to make this argument that the IDF is controlling TikTok. TikTok is a Chinese-owned company. China has been very clear of its support of Hamas. Yeah, I know you're laughing too because it's so bizarre and insane.
You're so uneducated, Ken. How do you keep up these conversations?
Company, as everyone know. The IDF does not control TikTok or Meta in any way. I mean, maybe you mean that there's Jews working there. Yes, Mark Zuckerberg is Jewish, but some of the biggest accounts on Meta, on Instagram, are Palestinian accounts. That's how we've seen the war in Gaza, because Hamas has infiltrated those accounts and actually control many of the Palestinian influencers that are coming out of Gaza. We know that it's factual, because there's some former Israeli officer or former Israeli IDF soldiers working in Meta office in Israel. The reason is because we have a compulsory service. Everyone has to serve in the IDF, and that's why they're making the statement to say that Israeli soldiers or former soldiers are forever in their life would be subject or legitimate target to hatred and violence against them. And it's so interesting that the people that are telling us that are against war and against genocide are the ones that continuously justify violence and hate and attacking and killing people because of their identity. I mean, it just doesn't, the math isn't mathing.
Whether you support one side or the other, Amani, there have long been these arguments about echo chambers on social media. So isn't this just another example of young people continuously being fed things that the algorithm thinks they like, or as what Hen was saying earlier in the debate, things that are inflammatory, combative, they seem to get promoted on the algorithm? Is there a risk that young people are not seeing any nuance in the news anymore because they're being fed a social media echo chamber?
I mean, I think Hen told on himself and the entire mindset of this Israeli strategy, right? He said it himself that knowledge is a threat. Free speech on social media that spreads information that is critical of Israel is a tremendous threat to the state of Israel.
But isn't it a risk that it's also an echo chamber, Amani?
Israel is hoping and fighting for it to become an echo chamber. The thing is that social media, especially from the young generations, it has been celebrated as a democratizing force where people that are marginalized and oppressed beneath the establishment have a chance to have their voices be heard and to gain a platform. And this is horrific to the Israeli government, that people that they are trying to squeeze beneath their thumb have a chance of being heard. And because of that, Netanyahu and the Israeli government is eager to make it an echo chamber of only pro-Israel sentiment and to pretty much annihilate any type of criticism of Israel entirely. So while Hen was hee-hawing about what I just said, and the lack of education there is really embarrassing for you, but here's the actual report itself, which confirmed that the #1 country in the world that originates takedown requests globally of Meta accounts, the #1 country is Israel. And this report has revealed that Meta has complied with 94% of those takedown requests. So essentially, Israel has just a completely unchecked power pipeline to our social media platforms, where it just tells them, these are the accounts that we don't like, please take these down. And guess what? That's a violation of human rights. Tech companies are actually not allowed to do that.
Picking up on what Hen asked there, according to who? Where is that information coming from?
You can find the expose on dropsitenews.com. It's been confirmed by several other outlets as well. And they also have cited every single source, including sources from the Israeli government themselves. And again, you don't have to look past Israeli leaders that have been speaking very openly in Hebrew. I mean, look at X, just X alone. The translate tweet feature was removed from Hebrew X posts because they were so genocidal and filled with hate speech that Elon Musk is even protecting the genocidal nature of Israelis on his platform by removing translate tweet, because every time we translate tweet on a Hebrew post, it's absolutely embarrassing, mind-blowing. And the biggest issue that Israeli society has is that once they emerge from this genocidal bubble that they're in, this indoctrination within Israeli society that they're trying to push on the American public and American free speech, they, just like Hen, are so surprised that the rest of the world doesn't agree with them that killing children is okay. Okay. The rest of the world doesn't agree. They are against war crimes. And outside of the Israeli bubble, they just cannot believe that the rest of the world can't agree with this. And so they're trying to increase their influence and power in every way possible on our social media networks. If Israel was really on the side of truth, then open dialogue and open algorithms, open free speech would be its best friend. But no, that's what Hen is saying is the biggest threat. The worst thing about social media is that people can speak freely on there and share information on there. And he, has a problem with that because it exposes Israel and the Israeli society. So
okay, all right, Hen, I'll give you a right of reply on that. We're almost out of time, but I also just want to quickly ask you as well. Prominent Jerusalem-based journalist Matty Friedman, he was with the AP bureau there for a long time. He now writes columns for other outlets. He says that mainstream media has abandoned the journalistic goal of reporting what's going on in favour of who does this serve. Is he right?
Yeah, I think Matty Friedman is absolutely right. And Matty has actually, a history of working with the New York Times, writing for the New York Times, being involved in all of those newsrooms. So I think his point of view is one that we actually should listen to and be worried about it, because truth is the most important tool that we have. And when we know that there's so many foreign intervening in social media, there are countries that are spending billions of dollars from China to Russia to Qatar on influence campaigns and to try and sway public opinion by creating bots. And I think it was really surprising for a lot of people on X when so many of the anti-Israel accounts were discovered to be based out of Pakistan, out of Turkey, out of Qatar, out of Iran and Russia, although they said that they're actually from Gaza. I think that social media can be an amazing tool to spread information and spread truth and having people engaging freely and disagreeing freely. But with the bots farms and this public opinion campaigns Qatar is the richest country on earth, and we know that they are spending so much money on it. So I think it's important that we are having checks and balances on it, and to make sure that when lies are being spread and that people are paying with their lives, we're holding those that are allowing it accountable, and that we reduce this hatred. I'm all for truth. I think truth will prevail. And one day we'll look back at this time and we'll see who stood on the right side of history and who was lying and justifying violence against minority groups.
It's a really emotional debate, so I appreciate both of you being willing to come to speak with each other, to speak with me and our audience, and give both sides of the story, which is what we always aim to do on Counterpoints. Thank you so much for being with us here. Hen Mazzig, Senior Fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute and author of The Wrong Kind of Jew, and Amani Al-Khatahtbeh, author, activist and founder of MuslimGirl.com. Thanks for being here on Counterpoints. And thank you for tuning in to this episode. Keep up to date with our latest debates and interviews on YouTube with the Al-Arabiya English page, and don't forget to follow us on TikTok and on X. We'll see you next time.